had a dream this afternoon. I was taking a nap, and when I woke up crying from the nap, I looked at my phone and it was 12:22 p.m. 1222. So the dream was I was a mother, and I had a son that was late 20s, early 30s, and other family members. It seemed like it was very, very close friends, family, cousins, other sons in there with me, but I saw people and faces, but I was not looking at them. It was just between me and my son at the time in this story, in this event. So I was standing, and we were all nicely, calmly. There was no threat or emergency or problem or issue. It was like maybe at the end of a shift or at the end of a day, and we were done in the area where we are moving to another area, but it was just a calm exit. We were like miners, some type of mine. It was a mine, M-I-N-E, or a shaft area. It was in a previous lifetime, not current in 2022. It was really, really old, a long, long time ago. But we were all white, so it was possibly, in America or in Europe, but in a previous, just a long, long time ago, in another era. With just the time and the way that things were being done, the safety of the mining and what we were wearing, and it just felt, a previous lifetime. So I was just standing there. So women and children were working in the mine, but I was standing, and we were people were just nicely, slowly moving. There was no rush, and just going, not even a line, not a crowd, but several people there, but just kind of finishing what they were doing and getting ready to go towards an exit, a large exit. There was not a problem getting out, no rushing, no pushing or anything, no sense of urgency at all. So my son all of a sudden was coming up from behind me and was passing me, and he's like, "Mom," like I was going to this area, and then I realized I couldn't get up, on this platform from the way that I went. So I was just nicely walking back, and my son said, "Mom," he saw me because he was coming, to exit, but he realized I was there, and he's like, "Stay there, stay right there, I will help you." And I never said anything. I was just, walking back towards where I thought I needed to go to get on the platform to exit. And there was like different levels there. Or there were people over on the other side of this area that was a little lower down, but I could see them, their full bodies. And then there were people, kind of down like a slant. It was slanted. And there were people to my right and down like a small slope, 20 or 30 feet away. And people behind me, 30, 40 feet away. We were inside an area, and there was no light, no natural light. It was dark and dingy. Everyone was dirty. It was, yucky and nasty. Like, it wasn't a coal mine. It was another type of manufacturing place or mine. It felt like a mine. So, but it could have been just in a dark place, making something, manufacturing something. So my son said, "Mom, stay right there. I'm going to save you." And I'm like, okay. And I was still trying to go, my way. I thought that it was, like I didn't see what was wrong with what I was doing. And my son was just nicely, walking, but our eyes were on each other. We were looking at each other, and he was, trying to get to me to help me. And he said, "Stay right there, I'll come to you." And I was like, okay. But there wasn't a whole lot of talking, and no one else was screaming or yelling or running or coming to, the aid. It didn't appear or feel like it was a sense of urgency or I was in danger. I didn't feel like I was in danger. I was just trying to figure out how to move forward where I needed to go. But apparently I had gone the wrong way, and I was backtracking about 20 feet to get up on the side. I thought there was an exit. I went there. It wasn't, so I was going back to get on the platform. And my son was coming to me, but moving really slow, like he had to be real careful and cautious. Then all of a sudden, the platform that he was on top of another platform. I didn't realize this. It just happened. Like it was just a series of events that it just occurred. I didn't see it coming. So his platform, it was like just a big, huge, maybe 2 feet thick, maybe 20 feet by 20 feet slab, like stone, but smooth. I didn't realize it could move before. It wasn't moving. It seemed solid and secure. But all of a sudden it was moving. What he was on was just moving. It started to slide away from me. And he was on all four. He went down to all fours. And then he laid down on the slab, and he was really still. He was trying to be still, realizing that. And everybody, without saying anything at all, there was no words. Everyone was watching my son and hoping that slab that he was laying on would stop moving, because all of a sudden I realized if it did not stop sliding away from me, it was going to fall. He was going to fall, and he was in danger then. But he felt like he needed to save me, but I didn't feel like I was in danger at the moment. I was on solid ground. And it appeared to be, but then all of a sudden it shifted. It started changing. And he laid down nicely. He just laid down, and he was looking at me, and everyone in the room was looking at my son laying on this slab, and it was moving so slow, just creeping, like it was greased, but just like slow. And there was no sound. There was no grinding sound. There was no one was screaming, but everyone was in anticipation that big slab that my son was laying on would stop, because if it didn't, he was falling to his demise. And I just started, I felt a sense of urgency and loss, but I was frozen. Like everyone was just frozen where they were standing, and no one, everyone knew that there wasn't anything that they could do, because it was a huge stone slab that was slowly shifting, really slow. And everyone knew, like it was just apparent in my knowing in the dream that everyone was hoping that it was going to stop, but there was nothing. There was a point where he couldn't jump off. He had to stay still. If he had moved, it would have made it worse or made the stone slide off the edge faster. So we all were just watching him slowly, he was moving away from me to then all of a sudden, which, appeared to be, I didn't see it before, but it was like a big chasm and a drop off. But I hadn't seen it before, because even when I walked to this later, it was an edge. It wasn't an edge for me. Like there was a wall there. So I didn't feel like, ooh, I can't go there. It's an edge. I'm going to fall. It was just a wall, and I couldn't go forward. So I had to go back. But I never felt, fearful. But he was slowly moving and sliding to his death. At the time, it could have been an injury, but later it was, realized there was no chance of living from that fall. But immediately at the beginning, I didn't know that. All of a sudden, he was just sliding away from me, and he just had like a strange, look. And I know I was just like staring, like it was coming to my knowing what was happening, but it was really, really slow. It wasn't all of a sudden like I screamed out, or I didn't try to reach out because I couldn't. I was just standing there frozen, watching my son slide away from me, and everybody was just hoping that it was going to stop, but it didn't. And then all of a sudden, the big stone slab that he was on got to the edge, and it started tipping, and the stone and my son fell, and it was hundreds of feet, like it was a long, long, long fall, and everyone was just standing there. And I remember, people like just gasped, like they couldn't believe that they had just witnessed what they witnessed, and everybody was like surprised and shocked. And I was standing there, and my chest got tight, and I couldn't breathe, and I just was like processing in my mind what had happened. I was just standing there in like, not in awe in a good way, but like I was sick. Because it happened like in slow motion, but in real time, and there was nothing that anyone could do. There was nothing that anyone could do to save my son. And so I was standing there, and everyone was standing there, because there was the people, across on the other side of that chasm, and they couldn't get to me, but then everyone was looking at me, because at first everyone was looking at my son in anticipation that the stone would stop sliding and he would, not fall. And then when it happened, where he fell, then all eyes were on me, and then everyone like, oh my gosh, like we realized that what had just happened, I had lost my son. And so I remember someone from behind me came up and just grabbed me and hugged me from behind. And I accepted that hug for a second. And then I just like shook myself, like, stop hugging me. And I couldn't breathe. I could not breathe. And so all of a sudden, I don't know why, I didn't know why in my dream, but then I realized it when it happened. But then all of a sudden I went to my left, and there was a slope. And it was white, small, little white. It wasn't pebbles, but they were round, smooth. Almost looked like little pieces of styrofoam, but it wasn't. It was more solid than that. But I was just digging. I was on my hands and knees, and just trying to get to the top of this small hill, still inside this place. The area didn't change, the environment didn't change, the situation. And all of a sudden I just shrugged the person off me, and I started crawling up that hill because I couldn't breathe. And that person and one or two other people were coming with me. They didn't know what I was doing, because it didn't make sense, because it was a wall, like there was just the ceiling, like this slope that I was climbing up in this stuff that was difficult to get up, because it wasn't like a solid dirt. It was, moving, but I was making progress, but it was like, it wasn't like, sludge. It wasn't like, I was making progress, but it was like slow progress. I was just fighting to get up this small slope, which didn't make sense, because it was just, the slope met the ceiling. And so I didn't know why I was going up this slope, why I was frantically fighting to get up the slope. And at the top, I started digging away those little white things, the whatever that I was having to go through and get up, to the top, fighting to get to the top. And I got to it, and I was digging, like I knew what I was doing. And all of a sudden, there was a break in the digging that I was doing, and there was daylight, and I just kept digging. It wasn't enough. There was just a break, and then natural light was coming in, and I kept digging because it wasn't enough. And then all of a sudden there was like a 1 foot by 1 foot open area, and I just stuck my face to that hole that I had made to the outside of where we had been working, and I just gasped for a breath. And I had to gasp like 3 or 4 times to be able to breathe from what I had just experienced, in front of me, my son falling and dying, and I couldn't help him, and no one could. So I was just gasping for air, and I was crying, and I was screaming out, like, oh, like, no, no, no. And then with a couple of, everyone else was just standing there, but the 1 or 2 or 3 people that had come behind me up the hill got to me and were just trying to hold me. I was just screaming and gasping for air at the top of this little small slope where I had broken through, and fresh air and fresh light and fresh daylight was coming through. And I woke up, and I was slightly gasping for air, like I had a hard time breathing. My chest was super tight, and I was crying. I was really crying when I woke up from the dream, because it was so real. And so I just laid there like, wow, it was so vivid. The dream was so vivid and felt so real. And it felt so real to my body as I was dreaming it, as my mind just was creating this dream, or remembering or realizing possibly a past life story or situation. And I just was like kind of like crying out. Like when I cry, I don't cry, I don't cry that way. I'm not a loud crier. I hold it in. I'm quiet, and just rarely, once in a while, I've been so upset in my life that I had to cry out. But I was just like, I was crying out. I had just witnessed my son dying, and it was hard, it was tough. And I was just like, dear God, like, why would you give me that dream? Or why did I create that dream in my reality? Because that was tough, like that was really sad. Or was that a real story from a past life that I've lived, where that was true, that really, really happened? It really actually happened. I had forgotten about it, but it came to me in this dream for some reason, for me to know now. I interpreted it. I don't want to tell that interpretation right now. I did send a text to my youngest son, so I wouldn't forget the dream, and so he would know about my dream and then my interpretation. But because he's like, wow, Mom, you should write these dreams down. He said, I never have vivid dreams like that. Like, I have some crazy, wild, very vivid dreams that I've had in the past, especially the last few years. So it was a horrible dream, but it's always cool when my dreams are so vivid and they seem so real. But of course, I'd rather wake up to something happy and glorious, and like I just won the lottery or something, and yay, I'm crying from happiness, and spending money on family and friends. That'd be cooler than a vivid dream where I wake up crying because I witnessed the death of my son. So I'm sure it has meaning that I need to sort through and talk to God about now in my real life. But it's, if you believe in reincarnation, which I know the Christian church, Baptists, were not taught that, but the Catholics do, and several other religions do. So there are more people on the planet that believe in reincarnation than don't. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not judging people that believe in it or don't believe in it. But I wasn't taught to believe in it. But the last few years, as I have taken a deep dive into begging God for knowledge and Gnosticism, I haven't dove in Gnosticism, but Gnosticism means truth and knowledge, Gnostic. So I have begged God for the truth and searched for the truth. So just an interesting dream I wanted to share. Thank you. Bye-bye.